Hello everyone and welcome to another video. So today I'm going to be going over the patch 10.6 notes. Now seems like a pretty big patch, guys, so this one might take a while. I might try and skim over some things that I don't think are as important, but given that this is a patch, it looks like there's a lot of mid changes. Like we've got Xerath here, Vega, Twisted Fate, Ryze. Urgot mid is something that I'm keeping an eye on. It will be worth going in detail into these ones specifically, but let's get straight into it, guys. So according to Riot, Wukong's got a bit of an update, so it'll be interesting to see how that works. And they're talking about updating the matchmaking system, so that will be interesting. And then some jungle changes. So let's dive straight in. Now, this one is interesting. So they're saying how the solo duo queue matchmaking system will now be less likely to create games where teams do not have the same amount of auto-filled players. Now, this is actually massive. Like, I don't know about you guys, and it's probably not as important in the lower elos, but definitely in higher elo, it matters a lot. And the reason it's so important is, think about it, if you're high elo, maybe, we're talking, Diamond Plus, D4 Plus, you get a player who's made D4, and maybe they've predominantly only one-tricked Fizz, or maybe they've one-tricked Shaco. And if they get auto-filled, even if on an off-roll champion, a lot of the skills that they've learnt are just not going to translate to a second role, and then they verse maybe another person on the other team who is a one trick in that specific role, and they get absolutely crushed, and the game just kind of explodes. So, and especially at the higher level, it's kind of heightened even more. The difference is heightened even more. So I'm really glad they're doing this. And they said here, we're also looking at a similar change that aims to make the number of pre-mades on each team equal. Okay, that's also really good. However, we end up combining with the autofill parity changes in a really bad way that led to matches being made more uneven MMR than we wanted. Blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, that'll be really interesting to see how that kind of pans out in solo queue. Now, first one off the block here, guys, we've got Anivia. Our iced duration increase. We're making a small consistency change to Anivia's iced debuff, the one that doubles the damage of E duration on an ultimate, so that all blah, blah, blah. Okay, so the ice duration on the R is now from 2 seconds to 3 seconds, which is now the same as Q. I mean, again, I don't think this is a massively big deal. I don't think this really heightens her strengths or really covers any weaknesses. I think it's just a nice quality of life thing. I really don't think this is going to change anything in terms of Anivia's place in the meta. People have asked me a little bit, my thoughts on Anivia in general. The main reason you don't see Anivia much in solo queue is because she basically takes too long to do anything in the game. She can't really roam. She really needs items, very item reliant. And even if she does farm up, she's going to have to give a lot of pressure in the meantime. And if she does get to those items, she has to fight fights in a very linear way. And it's very easy to counter it. So again, I just don't think that, unless they change something, buff significantly her laning strength, I don't think you're going to be seeing her a lot in solo queue. Whoops. So the second one here we got is Aphelios. Now, I'm not really going to go into detail here, or I'm just going to read it off and kind of give my opinion about how that's going to change it in solo queue. Severum's innate heal and innate damage to minions decrease. Crescendum's empowered damage decrease. Now, I don't really know the micro details of Aphelios too much. All I know is that it feels too strong to verse, especially in the higher elos. I don't think it's a very good champion. Not as effective in lower elos, but I'm glad to see that they're kind of reducing some of her stats, because I do think that she's quite out of control at the moment. And she did kind of get nerfed the last patch, which did make her significantly weaker. But in the higher elos, you get those the pro players who play this champion, because he has such a high skill cap. He gets quite out of control. So I'm glad they're fixing that up. Now, Darius is interesting. I actually believe Darius is one of the best top champions at the moment in the meta. And the reason he's so scary is that he has such a simple kit. And generally, champions like Darius, their main weakness is getting kited. Now, people have found a way, or they've buffed Darius to a point where, yes, he gets kited, but he just takes Ghost or Nimbus Cloak, and he can basically he can be tanky enough and have so much threat that even if I'm playing Orianna or Syndra or any of these champions, he has more threat on me than I have on him. Even though I'm a ranged champion that can stun him or whatever, he can still run past it, catch up to me, and just hunt me down. So Darius at the moment, I feel like base stat wise is super, super strong. So, yeah, they're given here, Darius, after crossing the line... Sorry, Darius is crossing the line after all the top lane and fighter item rework, so we're giving him a slight nerf. So what are they doing? Bonus physical damage 50 to 70% to 40 to 60%. I believe, I don't know if you max W or Q as Darius, so I'm not sure how big of a nerf this is, but in terms of level 1, it's 40 to 50 to 40%. I'm not actually too sure how this is going to change Darius' strength in lane, so I'll have to talk to a Darius main about this one, but I am glad that they are toning down Darius. The Apprehend cost from 45 mana base at all levels to 70 to 30. Now, this is pretty big because you don't put any points in E, so that means there's going to be, like a 25 mana increase level 1, basically, or for a long time on this Apprehend. Now, I don't know how mana reliant Darius is in lane. If he already is mana reliant, then this is a pretty big nerf. And then, like they said here, they want to make using Apprehend an even more strategic decision, which I think makes a lot of sense, because if Darius is able to spam E, then it kind of makes his champion quite out of control. So I like that decision from Riot. Unsure again how much this will affect his laning, so I'll have to talk to some people about that. Draven W, decaying movement speed increase. So we're buffing some of his power in a way that experienced Draven players can capitalize. I think this is fine. I think he's in a bit of a lull spot at the moment, so giving him a little buff might be. And again, this is not touching his base damages, it's not touching his scaling damage or anything like that. It's just allowing him to have a higher skill cap. I like this since he doesn't really have much self peel anyway. Garin. Now, Garin at the moment is out of control. Like, I don't know about you guys in your solo queue games, but Garin feels so annoying to verse. Not even just top lane. We're talking, mid lane as well. I'm so happy. Look at this. Base magic resist growth decrease. Now, I'm so happy they're changing that, because Garin should not be able to be played in the mid lane. You're a melee champion with, you have to be melee in the wave to wave clear. You basically have to build full damage, and you have no CC and very little gap closer, yet it can still... mid lane? Like, that blows my mind for some reason. Like, it blows my mind. I don't think that should be the case. So they're lowering the magic resist growth, which I'm really happy about. This is going to make it so he can get punished in the mid lane a lot more, as the lane goes on. And so he's going to actually have to itemize MR instead of just getting away with building damage. E crit strike ratio decreased as well. Now, I think this is quite healthy, because I don't know about you guys, but Garin in my games have been building a lot of crit, like Infinity Edge and stuff like that, and Phantom Dancer, so I think this makes sense. Just manage his damage a little bit, because it is kind of out of control. Very much similar problem to Darius in a way. I'm really glad that they've picked up on that, because they are, in terms of win rates, really, really high as well. Hecarim R fear duration increase. I like this, because I do think that at the moment we're seeing way too many champions like Rek'Sai, Elise, Lee Sin, a lot of these early ganking junglers, and I feel like some of these really interesting, fun champions in solo queue, I don't mind having them in the game. And personally, I'm a massive Hecarim fan, so I think this is a healthy change. It gives him a little bit, it's just a nice quality of life buff. It's not going to change him too much, though. Kayn, passive orb gain increase later. Last patch, we smoothed out Kayn's orb gain, but his transformation time shifted back to later in the game. We're moving his average transformation times closer to where they should be. All right, this is just, again, I'm not a massive Kayn person, so it's hard for me to comment on what this will do for Kayn specifically, but I'm assuming this is, again, a very nice quality of life buff, because he did get that nice little buff last patch, I believe. But it hasn't really made him be picked all too often in my games. I don't know about you guys, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this affects his transformation. Now, Kindred, here we go. Base attack damage growth and mana regen increased. W health restore increase, R heal increase. Kindred is starving for some buffs. Since Lamb and Wolf have been a little weak as of late, we're giving them some sweet nutrition in the form of healing and scaling. Attack damage growth. That's actually pretty big. Mana regen. That's so small. That's just rounding it up. Health restore on the W. This heal... If you think about Kindred's weaknesses in games, it's not really his scaling, is it? Like, if he gets through the early game, farms really well, maybe picks up a few kills, he scales well anyway. I don't think this really addresses this R change, especially, doesn't really address his problems, although it will make his skirmishing quite a lot better, especially this level 1 change, his 50 HP. By the time you're getting level 3 ults, this 100 HP really, in the grand scheme of things, isn't going to change too much, I believe. So I don't think this is going to be a big game changer. I do believe this attack damage growth is quite nice, though. I'm interested to see how this actually changes how Kindred feels in games. This is going to make it a lot more attractive for Kindred players, you know, when they're in champ select and they're like, well, can I get away with Kindred? If I do farm, is it even worth it at that point? I do believe this is going to, you know, it might actually put Kindred over the edge in a sense, but it'll be interesting to see how this plays out within solo queue. I already kind of think Kindred's not that bad in solo queue. If you path really well, you farm very efficiently, I don't think it's that bad of a champion. So this will be really interesting. I don't know how this heals well. It seems pretty big. Look, level 1, 32 to 49 based on missing health. And this will help her stay healthy in the early game, I'm assuming. So this will be interesting. Very interesting, actually. And maybe I'm just overrating. Maybe this attack damage growth really doesn't do anything. But, you know, off the top of my head, it's quite nice. But if you think about it, it's 0.25 AD a level, right? So that's every 4 levels you're only getting, I mean, you're not really getting too much AD. Maybe this isn't going to change too much at all. Or maybe I'm doing the maths wrong in my head. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But this will be interesting to see how this changes Kindred. Now, what do we got here? Morgana, base movement speed increase. This is actually nice. I already feel like movement speed is super important on supports. Whenever I see a movement speed buff on a support, it says to me that it's really, really nice. It's like a nice quality of life buff. Purely because movement speed is so important as a support, both for pushing your limits, hitting skill shots, dodging skill shots, getting up in the AD carry's face, and just impacting the map. So movement speed is really nice. E-shield increase early. Now this is going to allow Morgana to be, you know, she's going to be able to minimize rough counterpicks. So Morgana's generally counterpicked by mages. You know, things like Karma, Soraka, you know, a lot of the casters, the enchanters. Now, a lot of the time when you verse some of them, you had to make a choice. Did you want to put a few points in E to minimize the lane, like few points Q, few points E? Now this is just going to make it a lot nicer and a lot more, I guess, a lot more incentive for Morgana to put points in E to minimize tough matchups. So I don't mind this at all. But although they've got to be a little bit careful because Morgana can get quite annoying, and especially if you're giving her a buff in terms of minimizing her weaknesses. So it's going to be a little bit careful there. Right, here we go. Base mana regen growth increase, W damage increase later. I mean, you don't put points in W for so long. Like, you max Q and E. I don't think this is going to change much anyway. Like, by the time you're putting points in Q, you know, look, we're talking level 1 is the same. Level 2 is basically the same. Level 3, it's only 20 damage. And in fights, you're basically only getting maybe one W off, maybe 2 at max anyway. So I don't think this is a big game changer for Ryze. Mana regen growth. I mean, I just don't think these are what Ryze is struggling with at the moment. I think Ryze is weak at the moment weaker at the moment because there's too much threat in the game. So it's very difficult for Ryze to actually get to the point in the game where he feels impactful. The problem's not, you know, the problem's not when he gets there, is he strong enough? No, that's not the problem. It's like, the problem is getting there in the first place. Because you're either going to get outranged, you're going to get one shot. Before then, you're going to get ganked in the early game. So these buffs don't really say much to me. I don't think this is going to be a game changer at all for Ryze. But Ryze, you got to be careful though with Ryze buff, guys, because Ryze already has such a good kit and he's such a versatile champion. One little buff in the wrong direction, and he can be extremely strong. So they've got to be quite careful with that. Senna, passive AD per soul decrease. I'm pretty sure, I thought they already did that in the last patch. So, I mean, I'm glad they're nerfing Senna. I think Senna's out of control at the moment. I think she's one of the... I personally ban Senna in most of my games, so I think she's absolutely out of control. Her kit, I think it's just her kit. Her kit is extremely versatile and very, very good. If you think about it, you have, like, AoE utility, you have lockdown, you have scaling, you have sustain, you have really good range and damage, you have... Like, you have just so much utility. The kit is just extremely overloaded. So I'm glad they're doing something. Don't know how much this will affect it. But it'll be interesting to see. Shaco. Clone basic attack damage decrease. This is interesting because you don't see many AD Shakos nowadays. You generally see AP. So I don't... It's so funny how they're just nerfing AD Shaco out of nowhere. It's a little bit weird to me, and I don't even think AD Shaco is that strong anyway, so, I feel bad for the Shaco one tricks out there. Soraka, Q rejuvenation heal increase. Movement speed, bonus increase. Putting some power back into Starcall now that the Scourge of Soraka Top is no longer threatening time and space as we know it. Q, so level 1, 40 to 80, 50 to 90. And the scaling's the same. Movement speed bonus. Yeah, it's just a nice quality of life buff. I like it. I mean, I was always scared of them when they were nerfing Soraka Top, completely destroying Soraka support. So, I think it makes sense. And again, I think that, Soraka is again on the edge. Like, the thing is, she just struggles in solo queue because there's so many champions that can just kill you. So I don't mind giving her a little buff just to make sure she's not completely dead. Alright, here we go. Getting to the juicy stuff. The Twisted Fate. This should be a drum roll here. Now. So I've actually played a game as Twisted Fate on the new patch, guys. So with this blue card AP ratio, so what this says to me is that his mid-game burst is going to be very, very nice. Very nice. It's not going to matter as much in the early game because, again, you're generally looking to build Roa, which doesn't traditionally have too much base AP until you scale it up. So in the early game, it's not going to change too much. This red card AP ratio, though, will be interesting because there's a point in the game where you red card the back 3 casters and then you Q through them and you just don't have enough AP to kill the one-shot them with Q, even if you demat them. This may actually put it over the edge to make it so that you do kill them. You do finish it off with 1 Q a little bit earlier, so that'll be interesting. One thing I've been experimenting around with, and I need to test this more, is that maybe Electrocute Twisted Fate just is better now. Now that burst is more important and you can get away with playing quite aggressively and, you know, that extra burst with the Electrocute combined with the blue card AP ratio buff will make it that you just play a lot more aggressive than Twisted Fate, which will be interesting. So I'm going to try that out. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to you guys who've been telling me Electrocute's good. Before this buff, I wasn't convinced, but given this buff, it might make a little sense. So I'll make some notes or some comments in the Discord about it. I have tried one game and it did feel really good. So this is really, really... And I just feel like this buff is unnecessary as well. I already think Twisted Fate was in a decent spot. This is way too far, in my opinion. And I guarantee you they'll either hotfix it or they'll tone it back down the next patch. Urgot. Now, guys, I've actually been told by someone that Urgot mid could actually be a decent AD mid pick. It already kind of was in and out of the meta every now and then. It's always been around for a long time. Like, ever since Keen used it as a counter pick to Zed back in the day. Although it did get changed, it did get reworked. But the kit is always... Its kit's not that bad for mid lane. So whenever I see Urgot buffs, I'm always ready on keeping an open mind to potentially view it as a potential AD mid pick. So I'm going to maybe play around with it, talk to a few pro players who do play Urgot 1 tricks, and see what they think about it. So this Q buff was the slow duration is nice. I mean, just a nice quality of life buff. Maybe that may allow Urgot to get an extra auto attack off or another W passive, which was quite nice. This stun duration, I'm not sure how this affects his trading, but again, it's just a really nice, it seems like a really nice quality of life buff. They got to be very careful with Urgot as well, because I think he is just on the edge. So yeah, I'll play around with this, and I'll keep you guys updated. Could be a nice little niche AD pick. I got to figure out what the matchups would be like, because I think if you play a matchup that you get heavy outranged, it might be a bit tricky. But in lower range matchups, it might not be too bad. Veigar, base AD growth and armor increase. Q, base damage increase. Small boss for the small boy. I don't think this stuff changes anything, because you don't really auto attack much anyway. If you're ever in range to auto attack, you're probably just gonna die or take a bad trade. So I don't think this does anything. The Q buff is nice because you max Q, so 10 damage at level 1, 10 damage at level 2, 10 at 3, 10 at 4, and 10 at 5. I mean, it's nice. Is it a game changer? No. I don't think any of these changes here are going to put Veigar over the edge, although I do think Veigar is a very good champion to learn fundamentals, and it's actually a very solid niche mid counter pick, and in low elo, if it's a very good solid champion low elo as well if you're looking to pick up some form of mage. So yeah, Veigar's not too bad at all, and I think this is just a nice little buff, but I don't think it's going to change much in terms of its strength. Now getting to the Wukong rework. Alright, so let's just get through this one. This might be a little bit heavy here. One of our primary goals this update is to give Wukong more of that true trickster playstyle that it felt like he was missing. As a result, we're giving his combat pattern more versatility and ways to outplay his opponent. This monkey may finally be able to trick people instead of just one-shot whacking people with his staff. In addition, we want to power up his bruiser, top, jungle builds, since his mid and assassin builds, while strong, do not feel satisfying to play or play against. Alright. So, lowering base MR, that's something to keep in mind, since he's already a pretty squishy champion, and lowering his base HP. So this is, again, something to note, because he's already a very squishy champion, and a melee champion, so that's interesting. So he's going to be very squishy. Base mana increase. Nice. Mana growth. Okay. Passive. Wukong no longer gains bonus MR per nearby champion. Now grants 0.5% max health regen per 5 seconds. Bonuses are increased by 62.5% for 5 seconds every time Wukong or his decoy hit an enemy champion or monster, stacking up 8 times for a total bonus of 500%. Wow. What's the cooldown on this? Now grants... So you just get a base... So you have a base regen. But you get more regen every time you hit someone, and it stacks up to 8 times. So you could just potentially just be healing all the time if you're in combat all the time. So this says to me that, again, since they lowered his base HP and lowered his MR, that they're trying to compensate for that. But this seems a pretty nice passive, I'm not going to lie. But again, it's max health regen, and this is max health regen. So, yeah, wow. This is quite nice. So, building HP. Interesting. I'll come back to this actually when I read more of his kit. Now, the Q crushing blow, 10 to 130 from 30 to 130. And the attack damage ratio is increased. Bonus range now scales. Cast time now scales with Wukong's attack speed. Interesting. Whenever Wukong or his decoy deal damage with basic attacks or abilities, Q's crushing blow cooldown is reduced by 0.5 seconds. So this says to me that they want Wukong to be a champion that is like always in combat. Because think about it. They want him to be in combat with his passive. They want him to be in combat to lower the cooldown of his Q. And they're saying it scales with attack speed, so they want him to build attack speed. This is interesting. And this is actually quite a lot. 0.5 seconds per auto attack. Interesting. W. So you get a 300 range dash that can't go over walls. Thank God you can't go over walls. Stealth duration. Wukong's decoy no longer deals AoE damage before disappearing. The cooldown is quite high, but it's quite high now, from 18 to 10 to 20 to 16. The cost is base 60. Okay, here we go. Wukong's decoy now mimics his attacks in ultimate, but deals... Okay, there's still a lot of his damage. The decoy will attempt to attack enemies he's recently attacked. The decoy's next attack is empowered. Wow. Okay, so it uses decoy Q, decoy E. The decoy will start spinning and knocking out... Wow. This seems like a really good ability. It gives him a gap closer. It gives him stealth. And does that... I'm assuming... Look, because this works with his passive as well, because him or his decoy. So he's going to be both healing a lot. Wait, whenever Wukong... And if his... If the decoy actually uses the decoy Q, then that also contributes to lowering the cooldown of Q. Seems pretty nice. Not gonna lie. And then E base damage 60 to 205 from now 80 to 240. It's nice. Now scales with AP though. Okay. But it gives you attack speed. Gives you attack speed buff like it did before. Cooldown, okay, pretty self-explanatory. Okay. Now, Wukong can now cast his ultimate a second time within 8 seconds. A second cast can knock up enemies a second time. So again, they want him to be in combat for a long time. Knock-up duration is lowered. The spin duration is lowered to 2 seconds. Damage per second is based off now max health. So they're making him, they want him to be a tanky bruiser. They want him to not just build lethality and just be a one-shot champion. So that's definitely the way they're heading there. So you want to be building, definitely want to be building HP on him, that's for sure. Spinning movement speed, 20%. Spin, so you actually can cancel the spin here. Each tick of damage now applies Conqueror, which is pretty good for Wukong. He can now cast other abilities to cancel his ultimate, stopping it to spin. Wukong's bonus attack speed duration from his E is refreshed while spinning. Okay, well, again, this all says to me that, again, Wukong's going to be very much a tanky bruiser top lane. Very much maybe like a old school Garin or like a... kind of like a Darius. I guess Darius is more bursty, but even in the sense that you could just be chasing down people and healing all the time. What's another champion like this? Kind of like Kled, I guess, because Kled kind of builds, you know, Titanic Hydra, Sterak's, Black Cleaver, etc. This will be really interesting. I want to see this in game and how it works. I don't think you're going to see this champion mid as much. It seems like he's going to want to have a long lane to be able to chase down his opponents, utilize his passive, utilize his decoy thing and his Cyclone extended fights and stuff. So it definitely will be could be a jungler. I could definitely see it being a jungler. And then it also being a top laner, that's for sure. So this is nice. I like what they did, because Wukong was in a shitty, excuse the language, just in a bad spot beforehand. Didn't like him at all. Xerath. W center damage amplification increase, R damage per shot increase later. Now, this buff is quite nice. Now, W was always a really solid ability, even for support Xerath, because W is actually quite a reliable ability to hit. So I like this because it again rewards people with really, really good accuracy. Again, I think he's going to struggle in the meta still. I don't think it's going to change too much how often he's seen, but for the people who do play Xerath, it's going to be a nice quality of life buff. This doesn't change anything. Like 200 to 280, from 200 to 300, and basically the ratio is basically exactly the same. So this doesn't really do anything. And his ultimate damage is not what he needs or misses, etc. It already did good damage anyway. So some weird jungle changes. I'm not really going to cover this, but just Yorick jungle, Zyra, Shen, Morgana, Brand, whatever. Removing funneling, trying to get rid of that, which is good. So less funneling. Brilliant. Okay, top lane significance fall. We're following up with our top lane changes from 10.5 with an additional set of changes for Death Dance and Teleport. This combination should continue reinforcing our initial goals of helping top laners that are coming out of laning phase build carry items to be a threat throughout the game. The teleport chain should also shift some of its power as an excellent lane sustain tool to more of a late game splitting and flanking tool. Death Dance. So, interesting. So, builds out of Aegis now. So, 80 to 50, but you get 30 CDR. Any build that gives you... Wow, this seems like a pretty nice item. Gives you resistances, attack damage, and CDR. I love CDR. CDR is a very good stat. Whenever you see CDR, this is a nice item. Be interesting to see who builds this. Stores 30% of post-mitigation damage received. It takes it as damage over time. Stores 30% of post-mitigation received for melee champions. 20% for ranged champions. It takes it as damage over time. Okay. Interesting. Don't know who would build this in the mid lane. This could be a good... This could be a decent item on Urgot, maybe. Don't know. CDR. Could build on anyone, really. It's a nice one. Depends on how expensive it is, really. Now, TP. 360, so 6 minutes to 420 to 240. And you also get 3 seconds of movement speed. How does this change mid lane? So, 6 minutes to, what's that, 7 minutes. But it scales down. If you think about Twisted Fate, right, when you take teleport mid, you're not really teleporting back mid till around level 6, which is a third. 6, 12, 18, which is a third. So this is, what's a third? I don't know. I can't do maths off the top of my head. You got 420 to 240, which is a difference of, what's that? It's like 180, right? So then a third of this is 60. So this means, am I doing this right? It will go back to 360 by level 6. I'm not sure if I'm doing the maths right, but so by level 6, it will be the cooldown of TP will be 360 seconds. If this is the case, then it's not really going to change anything with taking teleport mid. I feel like if you were taking teleport mid, it's still going to be the same, especially with champions like Twisted Fate and stuff like that. I don't think this is going to change much. If anything, it's going to help Twisted Fate with his movement speed buff in terms of mid game counter ganking sides, because you get a movement speed buff, which is nice. So yeah, this, if anything, this makes it more, I guess, more incentivized to pick something like Electrocute, given that it's actually scales even better and compensates for, you know, only using it, having it, basically using it once in the game. So it's actually a bit of a buff in a way. Recommended items change. Oh, here we go. Area balance changes. Kaiser. It's a big nerf. Navigation tools, blah, 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 bug fixes. Now the important stuff. Here we go. Skins. So we got Talon Blackwood, Taric Lumen Shield, Twitch Shadowfoot. Look how cute this little Twitch is, honestly. So cute. Now, here we go. Darkstar Malphite. Guess it's pretty cool. Kind of, I guess. But he has plenty of skins. Cosmic Lux. Lux already has a ridiculous amount of skins. No more skins for Lux, please. The best one's Elementalist Lux anyway. Darkstar Mordekaiser. Now that looks pretty cool. Darkstar Mordekaiser looks cool. And finally, a skin for Xerath. Now, I love Xerath. So let's take a look actually what they look like. Dude, this Mordekaiser one looks sick. This looks pretty cool. I think I like this one. Actually, this green one looks really cool. Maybe the green one. Now, more importantly, here we go. Darkstar Xerath. This one looks so cool, man. I gotta get this skin. This one looks epic. This one looks really, really cool. I'm happy Riot finally did a skin for a champion like this, because you just never seen at all. So that's gonna be my patch rundown, guys. If you have any questions about anything, just feel free to let me know in the comments below, or chuck a at me in my Discord, whatever. Cheers, thanks for watching.